Resident Evil Village has taken the world of gaming by storm, and at this point, there has been plenty of videos exploring the different themes and characters involved in the game's story. However, when playing the game, I realized a strange truth that comes as a result of the game's events, and the uncut fact is that Ethan Winters is canonically uncircumcised. Wait a minute, what? Let me explain. As a heads up, starting right now, I will be referring to spoilers from both Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, so if you haven't played them, I highly recommend you do not watch this video and you play the game so you won't be spoiled. That being said, my purpose in this video is to highlight that due to Ethan Winters' condition, it is absolutely confirmed that he must be uncircumcised during the events of Resident Evil Village.
Let's see what you have. Ethan Winters.
Ethan Winters was apparently born in the year 1984 in Los Angeles, California, according to the Resident Evil 7 Japanese guidebook. This already starts us off with some helpful information. According to the CDC, male newborns in 1984 that lived on the West Coast had about a 50% circumcision rate, as you can see here. While we can't quite confirm Ethan's shaft, we can assume one of two things. One, he was not circumcised at birth, meaning we don't need to elaborate any further, or two, he was circumcised at birth, meaning he would not have foreskin. Let's assume for the sake of this video that he ended up being snipped.
The man thinks suffering is assured.
Yak, as a man's dick is cut off in the castle, blah, blah.
This would normally be the end of the discussion, but Resident Evil Village's plot direction changed the situation quite a bit. The big twist of Resident Evil Village is that Ethan ends up dying during the events of RE7 when Jack stomps his skull in. As a result, Ethan ends up becoming one with the mold and supposedly has similar powers to the Baker family. During Resident Evil Village, we can see these powers as they explain why Ethan is able to endure significant injuries to the point where he is even able to reattach his hand to his body. To put it lightly, Ethan has ridiculous levels of regeneration and seemingly can mend any injury over time. An example of such injuries are many hand stabbings, he gets his hand severed twice, his skull is caved in, his leg gets chopped off, and his heart is ripped out. Continuing onto this trend, we explore the matter at hand. If Ethan Winters was circumcised at birth, it's 100% likely that between the time of initial molding and the end of Resident Evil Village, Ethan's foreskin absolutely regenerated due to his healing properties. In contrast to this, I will note that many of Ethan's recoveries involving body segmentation did have to involve the body part in question, and the herbal medicine for quick reattachment. However, upon more research on the mold and these injuries, it seems you only need the body part for massive injuries sustained. A good example from earlier is that after the lichen attack, Ethan's hands return to some sense of normalcy and are able to function at a regular rate. As well, he can regenerate from the Heisenberg stabbings pretty well, and I doubt any of them would be giving Ethan medicine. It's also important to notice the feats of the Baker family, since his strain of mold would be on par to them. For the purposes of this video, I'm mainly going to be focusing on Jack and Lucas, since most of the feats of regeneration clearly happen with these two. First, let's start with Jack. Jack Baker apparently has the most intense regeneration of anyone affected by molded, and can show a nice example of the peak power molded can give. Jack is able to endure insane hits and fully recover himself from mold alone. This is to the point where Jack can quite literally recover back to normal after being entirely burned and blowing his own brains out with a pistol. It's even wilder when at one point you quite literally segment Jack's body with a chainsaw and he is able to come back for yet another fight. While we can say that Jack is an exception, since the game makes the note that he has the greatest regeneration of any test subject, we can't discount the feat that Jack is just able to hard regenerate without external assistance. This shows that anyone affected by mold would be able to regenerate, and the main factor that would vary per subject is time. Considering this, let's take a look at Lucas. Lucas is much closer to Ethan's build and would likely have similar feats in terms of regeneration. At the point we meet Lucas in game, we can already see a few things, notably that he's had his hand chopped off by Jack several times, as we can see by the dialogue, and he seems to get it back every time. This is more revisiting the same ideas, and one could argue that they are supplying Lucas with the herbal medicine. However, I wanted to bring up Lucas for a particular reason. During the mid-game, Lucas has a video he shows to Ethan where he begins prying off his fingernails to prove the gift Evelyn has given them with the molded. This is much more important than one would assume, because I highly doubt Lucas would care to reattach these minor body parts using the herbal medicine, since it's meant to be a trivial showing of pain. While fingernails aren't exactly foreskin, it does show that you likely could regenerate without requiring the body part removed. As confirmed by the events of Resident Evil Village, Ethan is a product of the mold and has the regenerative powers. Given both the minor scale of injury / cell size required and the length of time that had passed since Resident Evil 7, it's absolutely likely that Ethan Winters had managed to regrow his foreskin. While it's incredibly unlikely he would have the foreskin directly for reattaching, nor would he think about it exactly, it would be a bit of a moot point since both the time passed and the amount of herbal medicine he has used would be more than enough to supply this. Although I do want to add on the caveat that according to the game's events, Ethan is 100% mold entirely.
Now do you get it? Your whole body is nothing but mold.
Whether that fact makes things better or worse, I'll leave up to you. Overall, while it's highly unlikely we'll ever get visual confirmation of this, especially with how Village ended, it's certain that Ethan Winters managed to regrow his foreskin between the events of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village. All this being even funnier considering it's also likely that it's implied Ethan slept with Mother Miranda at some point.
Hey, what are you doing, mister?
But we can talk about that another time. If you enjoyed the video and would like to hear me rant on other minor topics in video games, feel free to subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think. Alternatively, you can also check out my Twitter, where you can hear further rants on a variety of horror titles. Thanks for watching!